Is the New Testament a reliable historical document, or is it a collection of myths and legends with no basis in history? This is a question that has been asked for a long time now, and many people have taken a stance to various degrees. I believe the evidence that we have indicates the New Testament is not only reliable, but more so than any other ancient document. Of course, there are always those who disagree. If you have talked to many atheists, Muslims, or other non-Christians, then you may have heard that we don't have the original copies of the New Testament books, and the books themselves were written very late. They contain events that are not reported by anyone else at the time, and they were not written by the authors to whom they have been attributed, but are simply anonymous. Now, I intend to respond to all of these claims in this series, but this video will focus on the argument of not having the original copies, as well as the manuscript evidence as a whole. Now, this isn't my favorite of the objections to respond to, neither is it the most difficult, but I do believe that it is incredibly important to deal with. The arguments regarding the original copies and manuscripts are used to say that the text has been changed so much that we can't know what was originally said. For this reason, it is more important of an objection because if it is true, then whoever wrote it, when it was written, and external sources regarding it are rendered completely irrelevant. With this argument, it is usually said that we don't have the originals, or copies of the originals, or copies of the copies, and so on and so forth. Now, this may seem very damning on the surface, but in reality, this actually doesn't mean all that much when we take a deeper dive into the actual manuscript evidence of the New Testament. Speaking truthfully, we don't have the originals of any ancient writing. We only have copies. The difference between the New Testament and every other ancient document is that when it comes to the manuscripts, the New Testament has far more and ones that are far earlier than anything else. When it comes to the New Testament, we have over 5,000 Greek manuscripts, over 10,000 Latin manuscripts, and over 9,000 manuscripts in other languages. Now, the second closest is Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, which has less than 2,000 manuscripts. But it doesn't end there. We can compare how many and how early New Testament manuscripts compared to other ancient works in history. Dr. Dan Wallace and Dr. Darrell Bach have cataloged just a few comparisons of the New Testament and other ancient writings. Livy, writing in the 1st century BC to the 1st century AD, has 27 manuscripts, with the earliest being from the 4th century. Tacitus, writing in the 1st century, has 3 manuscripts, with the oldest being from the 9th century. Suetonius, writing from the 1st to 2nd century, has 200 manuscripts, with the oldest being from the 9th century. Thucydides, writing in the 5th century BC, has 20 manuscripts, with the earliest being from the 1st century AD. Herodotus, also writing in the 5th century BC, has 75 manuscripts, with the earliest also being from the 1st century AD. These are just a few examples that go to show that if we throw out the New Testament because of manuscript reasons provided, then we will throw out every other ancient document throughout history. But the objections don't end here. It is commonly said that there are more variants in the New Testament than there are words. But what is a variant? Well, you have your Bible, but maybe you have a different translation as well that spells things differently. Well, when it comes to manuscripts, those are textual variants, and our manuscripts in the New Testament have up to 400,000. More than any other work. Now, this seems pretty bad, right? Well, it shouldn't. You see, there are so many variants because there are so many manuscripts. If we had one manuscript of the New Testament, then there would be 0 textual variants. But we would also have nothing to cross-reference it with, and therefore most people wouldn't consider it very reliable. You can have 2 complete New Testaments side by side that say exactly the same thing word for word, but if in one book, in one chapter, in one verse, there is even a slight spelling error or difference, then that's a textual variant. For example, in Greek, there are over a dozen different ways to say exactly the same thing, and when this is done, it is considered a variant, even if it changes the text in no way at all. Over 70% of these variants are simply spelling errors. Most of the rest are either so few in number or so late in date that we can easily ascertain what belongs and what doesn't. And even the ones that do appear early and have multiple in number are almost always unrelated to core Christian doctrine. Less than 1% of the variants are early and change the text in any meaningful way. This gives us an accuracy of around 99.5% when it comes to knowing what the text said. But what is the biggest addition to the text? Well, it's not a book, or a few chapters, or even a chapter. It is a two-way tie between 2 12-verse passages. These being Mark 16:9-20 and John 7:53-8:11. The long ending of Mark is an extended resurrection story, Without this passage, we can still get a resurrection in Mark, as well as the other New Testament writings. As for John 7:53 to 8:11, this is the story of the woman taken in adultery, and although it is very popular, it is by no means doctrinal. Furthermore, most modern translations put the very few added passages into brackets to let the reader know that it's not original. So this isn't as if it's some sort of big secret that Christians are trying to cover up, as most Bibles will say that this probably wasn't original anyways, and this is something that is widely known among evangelical conservative Bible scholars. I will close out this video on the manuscript evidence by pointing out that even if we didn't have as many manuscripts as we do, this still wouldn't mean all that much. You see, the early church was a small persecuted minority that didn't have any central power who could control the text. In fact, Rome wouldn't get a central bishop until the mid-2nd century. The point is that if someone in the 1st century wanted to change the text, then it wouldn't matter. This is because they didn't have the control of the text on the large scale. To put it in modern terms, if someone in Washington state wanted to change a book, keep in mind with no access to modern technology, then their own changes would have no effect in other states, especially ones that are very far away, not to mention foreign nations that they can't even reach. This is simple, because they don't have that power, and that's how it is with the New Testament in the 1st and 2nd century. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. If you have any ideas or anything to say, feel free to leave a comment. And if you want to see more of my content, then always feel free to subscribe to my channel. With that being said, thank you for watching.